I'm Amalia, 32, standing before two tiny white caskets holding my baby boys. The funeral home is quiet, save for soft sobs and hushed whispers. I feel my husband's family staring daggers at me. My mother-in-law, Evelyn, drifts from guest to guest, whispering, then glancing at me with fake sympathy. No one knows the truth until my 4-year-old daughter tugs the pastor's robe. Her words turn everything upside down. If you're watching this, drop a comment with where you're from and hit like and subscribe. Sometimes, those we trust most hurt us the deepest. Before Noah, I had a bright marketing career. At 25, I was climbing the ladder at a Chicago agency. My days buzzed with client meetings, brainstorming, and drinks with coworkers after hours. I lived in a cozy downtown apartment, had close friends, and dreamed of launching my own agency. Love wasn't on my radar then. I met Noah at a local photographer's art show. He was tall, with warm brown eyes and a smile that put me at ease. We talked for hours about travel dreams and childhood stories. Noah, a successful software engineer with his own business, was kind, smart, and genuinely cared about my thoughts. I didn't know then that Noah was an only child, adored by his mother his whole life. Evelyn raised him alone after his father passed when Noah was 5. At first, their bond seemed sweet, his regular calls to her, her pride in him. It felt heartwarming. Our romance moved fast. 6 months in, we were planning a wedding. Noah proposed on a Lake Michigan getaway, and I said yes with joy. But I noticed something odd. He called Evelyn before my parents, putting her on speaker. Her first words? "Did you use the ring we picked?" No joy for us, just her need to control. Wedding planning revealed more warning signs I ignored. Evelyn had an opinion on everything: my dress, the flowers, the venue. I chose a simple gown, she sent links to fancier ones, saying Noah deserved the best. I wanted wildflowers, she insisted on roses for class. Noah always said, "Mom just wants our day perfect." To avoid fights, I gave in. The wedding became grander, the venue stuffier, more about guests than our love. I told myself it was fine to keep peace. After our honeymoon, trouble started. Evelyn visited our home, rearranging furniture to suit Noah. She critiqued my cooking, bringing meals because Noah needs proper food for work. She'd run her finger along shelves, sighing at dust. Noah brushed it off, "Mom's just helping." She raised me alone and wants to stay close. I tried to understand, but her constant jabs wore me down. 2 years into marriage, I got pregnant with Lily. I was thrilled, Noah was over the moon. But Evelyn declared herself the expert. "I raised a perfect son," she'd boast. "I know best." She'd show up unannounced with vitamins, books, and diet advice. She questioned my doctor and pushed me to see her friend, an obstetrician. When I refused, she told Noah I wasn't serious about the pregnancy. Lily's birth was joyful yet stressful. After 14 hours of labor, I held my beautiful girl, exhausted but happy. Evelyn arrived minutes after Noah's call, barely noting my effort. She took over, telling nurses how to swaddle and quizzing the pediatrician. She stayed until visiting hours ended, often taking Lily from me to show me how to hold her. Breastfeeding? She hovered, her advice making me feel useless. When Lily struggled to latch, Noah said, "Mom knows her stuff." She raised me alone. Be grateful. But it wasn't help, it was control, chipping away at my confidence as a new mom. When we brought Lily home, Evelyn came daily. She criticized my nursery temperature, diaper brands, everything. If Lily cried, she'd swoop in, saying only grandma could soothe her. As Lily grew, Evelyn opposed my choices: solid foods, part-time work, even Lily's clothes. She bought outfits I'd nixed and inappropriate toys. When I set boundaries, she'd cry to Noah, claiming I was cutting her off from her only grandchild. Noah and I fought more. He couldn't see why I clashed with his mom. He called me oversensitive, ungrateful. Our once strong bond cracked under Evelyn's constant presence and his loyalty to her. By Lily's third birthday, I tiptoed in my own home, doubting every parenting choice, knowing Evelyn would judge. Noah and I felt like roommates, with Evelyn an invisible wedge between us. At Lily's third birthday, I found out I was pregnant again. Morning sickness hit hard. I thought it was a bug. After a week, a pregnancy test confirmed it. I was excited to grow our family but worried about our shaky home life. When I shared the pregnancy news with Noah, he smiled briefly before worrying about money. Another kid means tighter budgets, he said, already crunching numbers in his head. I knew he'd be a loving dad, but his practical response left me longing for a deeper connection. At my first ultrasound, I got a shock: 2 heartbeats, twins. The technician showed me 2 tiny beans on the screen. I laughed and cried, overwhelmed with joy. Noah looked stunned when I told him, managing a weak smile. Twins, huh? That's efficient, he said, then called his mom right away. Evelyn's reaction was over the top. She burst into our house an hour later, arms full of baby store bags. Twins, she cried, hugging Noah first, then barely patting my shoulder. So exciting, twins run in our family, you know. As my pregnancy went on, she dove in deeper, researching twin pregnancies and pestering me with warnings. Twins are risky, she'd say constantly. You have to be so careful. At 5 months pregnant, Evelyn dropped a bombshell at Sunday dinner. I'm moving in after the twins arrive, she declared. You'll need help for a few months. My fork stopped cold. That's kind, but we're set, I said cautiously. I've got maternity leave planned. She scoffed. You struggled with one baby. Twins? Impossible with a toddler. Noah cut in before I could reply. We'll talk later, he said, but his face showed he liked her idea. As my belly grew, Noah worked longer hours. He said it was to save for the twins, but I think he was dodging the tension at home. Our talks turned into quick chats about schedules, not feelings. One night, tucking Lily in, she broke my heart. Mommy, why does Grandma say you're not a good mommy? I froze. Did she say that to you? Lily nodded, eyes wide. She told Auntie Margaret you don't know how to care for babies. I kissed her forehead, assuring her I loved her, but inside, I was furious. Evelyn was tearing me down, even to my daughter. I confronted Noah, but he backed his mom. She's just worried, he said. Twins will be tough. Maybe her help isn't a bad idea. At 34 weeks, I went into labor while grocery shopping. By the time Noah reached the hospital, I was far along. Doctors couldn't stop it. Ethan and Elijah arrived early, tiny but fierce, each just over 4 pounds. They were whisked to the NICU, hooked to monitors. Instead of holding them, I watched through glass, my heart aching. I stayed in the hospital 5 days for complications while the twins stayed in the NICU for 3 weeks. Evelyn took over at home, moving into our guest room without asking, managing Lily and prepping for the twins. When I got home, our house felt foreign. She'd rearranged everything: furniture, pantry, even my carefully planned nursery. I made it better, she said, not caring if I agreed. My woodland nursery was now nautical, my cozy chair swapped for her stiff rocker, cribs moved out of place. Lily seemed quiet, clinging to me. She whispered that Grandma changed her bedtime, her food, and hid her favorite toys for being too babyish. Noah saw no issue. Mom's been a lifesaver, he said. We'd be lost without her. When the twins came home, they needed constant care: jaundice, special feedings, Ethan's breathing issues, Elijah's slow weight gain. Evelyn acted like the expert. These boys need extra care, she said. Good thing I'm here. She meddled in my feeding routine, grabbed the babies before I could hold them, and criticized my swaddling, burping, even diapering. One night, as I soothed a fussy Elijah, she snatched him away. Let me show you, she said. Some moms just don't have the knack. I was too tired to argue. The twins were tough. They never slept together, one would quiet, the other would cry. I was recovering, pumping milk for two, and constantly worried about their health. A week after they came home, Evelyn made her big move. "I'm staying 6 months," she announced at dinner. "You need me, and so do these boys." I looked at Noah, hoping he'd talk to me first. Instead, he nodded. "That's great, Mom. We need the help." I felt like I was losing my home, my kids, my marriage. Exhausted, I couldn't fight back. The twins took all my energy, and Evelyn had made herself indispensable. Weeks later, I noticed the twins weren't thriving. Preemies should catch up, but they were sluggish, barely alert, even at feedings. The twins weren't gaining weight, even though they got plenty of formula and breast milk. I shared my worries with Noah, but he dismissed them. "Babies grow at their own pace," he said. "Preemies take time to catch up." My gut screamed something was off. I wanted a pediatrician's opinion, but Evelyn shut me down. "You're overreacting," she said. "I raised Noah alone, and he's fine. They need care, not doctors poking them." Noah backed her, as always. "Mom knows babies better than us," he said. "If she's not worried, we shouldn't be." But I couldn't shake my fear. I booked a doctor's appointment, only for Evelyn to take the twins on a grandma outing that morning. When I called, frantic, she claimed she forgot and was at the park on a chilly 40-degree day, no place for fragile preemies. I barely slept, juggling the twins' erratic schedule, Lily's needs, and my postpartum recovery. I started crying often, feeling distant from my kids and Noah. "You look awful," Evelyn said one morning. "Maybe you need meds. Some women aren't cut out for motherhood." Noah's agreement stung worse. "You should see someone," he said gently. "Mom says postpartum depression is serious." One night, I hit rock bottom. The twins cried for hours, one settling just as the other started. I hadn't showered in days, lived on crackers, and felt like a failure. Evelyn found me sobbing in the nursery, trying to soothe Elijah while Ethan wailed. She took Elijah from me without a word. "Go sleep," she ordered. "I'll take care of them." Too drained to argue, I gave in. "Wake me for their 2 a.m. feeding," I said. "I've got bottles ready," she replied. "You need rest." I slept 8 hours straight, the longest since the twins' birth. At 6 a.m., I woke in a panic, realizing I missed their feedings. I rushed to the nursery, both twins were out cold, asleep all night. "How'd you get them to sleep so long?" I asked Evelyn, who was making Lily's breakfast. "Just a grandma's magic," she said with a smug smile. "Experience works wonders." That became the routine. Evelyn handled nights, and the twins slept 10 to 12 hours. At first, I was grateful, but it felt wrong. Preemies with feeding issues shouldn't sleep like teens. "Is this normal?" I asked Noah. "Shouldn't they wake to eat?" He shrugged. "Mom says they're good sleepers, like I was. Be thankful, not suspicious." But I couldn't relax. The twins were sluggish, rarely smiled, and missed milestones, always drowsy. One afternoon, I overheard Lily talking to her stuffed bear. "Grandma put special medicine in the baby's bottles," she said. "It makes them good and sleepy like angels." My heart stopped. I knelt by her. "What medicine, sweetie?" Her eyes widened. "White powder from her special bottle. She says it's her secret for fussy babies." I kept my voice calm. "Does she do this a lot?" Lily nodded. "Every night after you sleep. She says not to tell you, you'd get mad for no reason." That night, while Evelyn bathed the twins, I searched her room. In her bedside drawer, under a scarf, I found an unlabeled bottle with white pills, some crushed to powder. I confronted her. "Those are my calcium pills," she snapped. for my osteoporosis. You're snooping now? Why the powder? I pressed. They're hard to swallow whole, she said coolly. Your paranoia is out of control. You need a therapist. I showed Noah the bottle that night. Something's wrong, I said. The twins sleep too much, they're sluggish, and now this. I think your mom's dosing them. He glanced at the bottle and handed it back. Those are her supplements, he said coldly. You're paranoid from postpartum depression. You need a psychiatrist. What about Lily's story? I pushed. He sighed. She's 4, Amalia. She invents stuff, like the unicorn in her closet last week. I felt so alone, gaslit by Noah and Evelyn. With only my 4-year-old's word, I watched the twins closely, making their bottles myself and keeping them near. Evelyn eyed me silently. Noah griped I was pushing his mom out. She's here to help, he said. You're making her feel unwanted. The twins aren't right, I insisted. They're not growing normally. They're preemies, he shot back. Stop inventing problems. For a few days, I kept Evelyn from the bottles. The twins perked up, cried more at night, acted like normal babies. It fueled my suspicions. Then, exhausted from their wakings, I crashed one night. At dawn, I woke, realizing the twins were silent all night. I ran to the nursery. Evelyn sat rocking between their cribs, looking pleased. They slept great, she said softly. See? Things go better when you let me help. I checked the twins, deeply asleep, barely moving, just shallow breaths. On the changing table, I saw an empty bottle with white residue inside. My heart pounded as I slipped it into my robe pocket. Later, when the house was quiet, I inspected the bottle. A gritty white powder clung to the nipple and inside. This wasn't formula, it was something else. I searched online about drugs that make babies too sleepy. What I read scared me. Even tiny amounts of sleep aids or tranquilizers could harm infants, especially preemies like mine. I faced Noah again. I think your mom's drugging the twins, I said bluntly. We need a doctor to test them now. His face turned to stone. Enough, Amalia. You need help. Serious help. My mom would never hurt her grandkids. Accusing her shows how unwell you are. I felt trapped. No one believed me, and my babies were at risk from the person meant to protect them. I'll never forget that Tuesday morning. The house was eerily silent. Lily slept, and Noah had left early for a meeting. Evelyn took the twins' night shift, saying I looked like death and needed rest. I woke at 6:30 with a sick feeling. No baby cries, no bottle prep from Evelyn, just stillness. I crept to the nursery, my feet silent on the wood floor. The door was cracked, morning light slipping through. Both cribs stood in view, my twins too still. My mom's instinct screamed. I rushed to Ethan's crib, touching his cheek, ice cold. His lips were blue, his chest still. No, 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 I whispered, lifting him. He was limp. I laid him on the floor, starting CPR, my parenting class training kicking in as my heart refused to believe. After breaths and compressions, I checked Elijah, same condition. A raw scream ripped from me, waking Lily and bringing Evelyn running. Call 911. I yelled, back to Ethan, watching Elijah. They're not breathing. Evelyn froze, pale. What did you do? She whispered. Not shock, not help, but blame. I ignored her, kept up CPR, and shouted again for her to call. She finally left, returning to say an ambulance was coming. The next hour blurred, paramedics, flashing lights, frantic efforts to save my boys. They worked in the nursery, medical terms swirling as I stood against the wall, Lily clinging to me, both of us crying. Deep down, I knew they were gone from that first touch. The paramedics' resigned looks and words, "We did all we could," shattered me. Police arrived soon after, standard for sudden infant deaths. They asked questions, took photos, treated our home like a crime scene. "When did you last check them?" an officer asked. 10 last night, I said, voice empty. My mother-in-law took the night shift. Evelyn, quiet on the couch, spoke up. "I checked at 2 a.m. They were fine, sleeping peacefully." The officer pressed her. "Anything odd? Breathing issues? Color?" She shook her head, dabbing dry eyes. "Perfect angels, sleeping soundly." I didn't want to wake them. Her tone chilled me, a hint of smugness under the grief. "They're 3-month-old preemies," I told the officer. "They shouldn't sleep through feedings." Evelyn glared. "Preemies need rest to grow," she said. "The doctor said so." That was a lie. Our pediatrician stressed waking them every few hours. The officer noted it. "We'll need your statements and the medical examiner's report. It looks like SIDS, but we'll check other causes." After the police left with my babies, Noah came home. Seeing us, he collapsed, sobbing harder than I'd ever seen. Evelyn rushed to him, cradling his head. "My poor boy," she murmured, focused on Noah, not our twins. In the days after, as we planned the funeral, Evelyn spread doubt. She didn't accuse me outright but dropped hints. To Noah's cousin, Amalia was so overwhelmed, barely sleeping. I tried to help, but she wouldn't listen. To my sister-in-law, she had bad postpartum depression. Who knows what she did at night? To the pastor, Noah's crushed, losing his sons after his dad. Some men aren't meant for joy. Numb with grief, I couldn't fight back at first. The medical examiner called it SIDS, common in preemie twins, but toxicology tests would take weeks. Noah turned ghost-like, off work, staring at walls or hiding in his office. He barely looked at me, as if I reminded him of our loss. Lily grew clingy, scared, asking where her brothers went. I tried explaining death to a 4-year-old, but how could I, when I didn't understand it myself? Evelyn handled the funeral plans, talking only to Noah. She picked the tiny caskets, flowers, program, even the twins' burial clothes. When I tried to have a say in my boys' farewell, she'd pat my hand. "Focus on healing," she'd say, brushing me off. The day before the funeral, I overheard her on the phone with her sister. "Noah's heartbroken," she said. "But maybe it's better this way. Those boys weren't healthy, and Amalia couldn't cope. Noah can start over, maybe with someone better suited for motherhood." That moment confirmed it. Evelyn never wanted my twins to thrive. They were rivals for Noah's love, proof of our bond. Whether she harmed them on purpose or neglected their needs, she caused their deaths. But I had no proof, just Lily's words, my gut, and a growing fear she'd been poisoning my babies. By the funeral, Evelyn's whispers had swayed Noah's family. Their condolences were cold, their eyes accusing, their hugs quick and stiff. I heard their murmurs, she was always overwhelmed. The babies looked so thin. She wanted to work, leave them with a nanny. Noah deserved better. Noah stayed distant, grieving alone, never sharing his pain with me. We lost our boys, but Evelyn's invisible wall kept us apart. Lily watched it all, her young eyes catching truths adults ignored. The funeral morning was gray and rainy, matching my heart's darkness. I stared at my closet, lost, unable to pick an outfit to bury my sons. I chose a simple black dress, worn years ago for my grandma's funeral. Lily looked small in the black velvet dress Evelyn bought without asking me. "Do I have to go, Mommy?" she whispered as I brushed her hair. "I don't want to see Ethan and Elijah in boxes." My voice cracked. "Their bodies are in the boxes, sweetie, but their special part, their spirits, are gone." Lily frowned, thinking. Is that why Grandma wasn't sad when she found them? She knew their spirits were gone? I stopped, hairbrush frozen. What do you mean, Lily? Her voice was tiny. That morning you screamed, I woke up and saw Grandma in the baby's room before you. She stared at them in their cribs, didn't touch them or call for help. She just went back to her room to change. Then you screamed. Ice filled my veins. Did Evelyn know they were gone and leave them for me to find? Before I could ask more, Noah stood in the doorway, face worn. Car's here, he said flatly. Let's go. The funeral home was packed. Evelyn had invited family, friends, even Noah's work contacts, making my private goodbye a public show. She greeted guests like a party host, pointing them to her chosen guest book. The twins' tiny casket sat up front, surrounded by flowers I didn't pick. Evelyn's photos of the boys stood on easels, many I'd never seen. I drifted through the crowd like a shadow, taking hugs from strangers. Noah stuck by his mom, a team, while I clung to Lily, my only comfort. The service was set for 11 o'clock. At 10:55, Evelyn seated everyone, putting Noah and me in front, her beside him, Lily by me. Pastor Brian, who baptized Lily, stood solemnly by the caskets. Before he spoke, Evelyn stood. May I say something? She asked. The pastor nodded, stepping back. Evelyn wore black, but her pearls seemed too fancy. She faced the crowd, her grief rehearsed. We're here to say goodbye to two sweet angels, taken too soon, she said, voice steady. Ethan and Elijah brought joy in their short lives. Their loss is a tragedy no family should face. She looked at me. But maybe there's a reason in this pain. Maybe God, in His wisdom, took them to spare them a hard life. Maybe He saw their mother and saved them from suffering. The room gasped. Noah tensed but stayed quiet. I sat stunned, unable to process her words. Did she just say, at my boy's funeral, that God took them to protect them from me? Evelyn went on, voice heavy with fake tears. Noah, a loving father, would have given them everything, but sometimes that's not enough with other issues at play. Some nodded, pitying Noah and Evelyn, glaring at me. I wanted to scream, to defend myself, but grief and shock held me still. The room blurred, and I nearly fainted. Then Lily moved beside me. She slid off her chair and walked to the front. Before I could stop her, she tugged Pastor Brian's robe. Pastor Brian, she said, her voice clear in the hush, should I tell everyone what Grandma put in the baby's bottles? The room froze. Evelyn, halfway to her seat, stopped, her face pale. Pastor Brian knelt, confused. What do you mean, little one? He asked softly. Lily glanced at me, then Noah, then stared straight at Evelyn. Grandma put white powder from her special bottle in the baby's bottles at night, Lily said. She said it made them sleep like good babies. Enough would make them sleep forever. The room went dead silent. Every eye turned from Lily to Evelyn, whose face went ghostly white. She's confused, Evelyn said, her voice high and shaky. Kids make up stories when they don't get tragedy. But Lily stood firm. I'm not confused, she said. I saw you, Grandma. You told me not to tell Mommy. You said the powder was your secret to calm fussy babies, to make them sleep like angels. Noah stared at his mom, doubt flickering in his eyes. Mom? He asked softly. Evelyn forced a brittle laugh. Noah, you can't believe this childish tale. Lily's only 4, she doesn't know what she's saying. I do know, Lily shot back. You said it was our secret. You showed me how you mixed the powder in their milk and said no one would believe me because I'm little. Murmurs spread through the crowd. A man in a suit stood up in the back. Mrs. Evelyn Richardson, he said, I'm Detective Wilson. Please come with me outside. Evelyn's eyes darted like a cornered animal's. This is ridiculous, she snapped. I'm a grieving grandma at my grandson's funeral. I won't face these absurd claims from a confused child. Noah's voice was faint. Lily doesn't lie like this, Mom. He looked at me, truly seeing me since the twins' death. Did you know? I suspected, I said. I found crushed pills in her room. The twins were too sleepy. Lily told me, but you didn't believe me. Evelyn bolted for the door, surprising us with her speed. Detective Wilson was faster, stopping her. Another officer joined, and they led a struggling Evelyn out. The service fell apart. Some guests left, others huddled, whispering about what happened. Noah sat alone, head in hands, as Pastor Brian tried to restore calm. I hugged Lily tight. You were so brave, I whispered. So brave. Did I do wrong, Mommy? She asked, voice small. Grandma said it was a secret. No, sweetie, I said. You told the truth, and that's the bravest thing. Sitting in the front row, surrounded by stares, I felt my voice return. I'd lost my babies, but the truth was out. Justice for Ethan and Elijah might finally come. The funeral was delayed, handled gracefully by the director. The tiny caskets were moved to a private room, and Pastor Brian promised to reschedule. Detective Wilson needed statements from Noah and me at the police station. I held Lily's hand tightly, the bright lights harsh after the dim funeral home. We need to talk to your daughter, the detective said kindly. A child psychologist will be there, and one of you can stay. Noah, silent since we left, sat staring at the floor, tense. I'll stay with her, I said, unsure of his state. The interview room had bright walls and toys. Dr. Reynolds, a gentle woman, connected with Lily quickly. Tell me about the baby's bottles, she asked after some chat. Lily glanced at me. I nodded, my heart breaking again. Grandma put medicine in them, Lily said. From her special bottle. How do you know it was medicine? Dr. Reynolds asked. She said so. Her special sleep medicine. She said the babies were fussy and needed it to be good. Did you see her do this a lot? Lily nodded hard. Almost every night. After Mommy slept, Grandma took me to the kitchen, gave me cookies to be quiet, and got the bottles ready. Was the medicine like milk? No, white powder, Lily said. She tapped it into the milk and shook it so it vanished. Dr. Reynolds smiled. Great job, Lily. Did Grandma say more about the medicine? Lily's face got serious. She said it made them sleep like angels. One night, she said enough would make them sleep forever, so Daddy, and I could be a family without Mommy being sad. I gasped, horrified. Dr. Reynolds looked at me kindly, then back to Lily. Did she ever use more than usual? Lily nodded. The night before they went to heaven, she put an extra. I asked why, and she said they were super fussy and needed more to sleep. My hands shook so much I sat on them. Evelyn had overdosed my babies on purpose. Meanwhile, detectives questioned her. Later, I learned she denied it all, saying Lily was confused or I coached her. But faced with toxicology tests, she changed her tune. I gave them a little sleeping medicine, she admitted. Amalia was overwhelmed, and they cried so much. I just wanted everyone to rest. The evidence told a darker truth. The police search of our house turned up the unmarked pill bottle hidden in Evelyn's room. It was filled with prescription-strength sleeping pills, the kind that could knock out an adult, let alone fragile infants. Lab tests on several baby bottles revealed residues of the same medication, confirming my worst fears. But the most devastating evidence came from our home security system. Noah had installed the cameras after a break-in at a neighbor's house a few years back, never imagining they'd capture something like this. Detective Wilson sat us down in a dim room at the station and played the footage. There she was, night after night, in the kitchen under the glow of the overhead light. Evelyn, with her back slightly hunched, crushing white pills into fine powder on the counter. She'd measure it carefully at first, tapping it into the twins' formula bottles, shaking them until the powder dissolved. The videos were time-stamped, showing her routine like clockwork. But the night before they died stood out. She added significantly more powder, her movements deliberate, almost methodical. I watched in horror, my stomach twisting, as she sealed the bottles and placed them in the fridge, ready for the overnight feedings. Noah sat beside me, his face like stone, unblinking as the screen flickered. When the video ended, he stood without a word, his chair scraping the floor. He walked out of the room, down the hall, and straight out of the police station into the cold air outside. I didn't follow him. I couldn't. My legs felt heavy, anchored by grief and rage. I had to stay strong for Lily, who was waiting at home with a babysitter, and for the memory of my sons, who deserved justice. The toxicology reports arrived soon after, sealing the case. Both twins had lethal levels of the sleeping medication in their systems, far beyond any accident. The medical examiner revised the cause of death from SIDS to homicide by poisoning. Evelyn was arrested and charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder. The days that followed were a whirlwind, a blur of endless police interviews where I recounted every detail, every suspicion I'd had. Meetings with the district attorney dragged on, as they built a case that would expose our family's darkest secrets to the world. Reporters started calling, sniffing around for the story of the grandmother who killed her own grandsons. I shielded Lily as best I could, but the weight of it all pressed down on me. Noah returned home that first night after the video, his eyes hollow. He didn't say a word, just packed a duffel bag with clothes and toiletries. He couldn't look at me, couldn't speak to me. The house, once our home, now felt like a crime scene, the place where his mother had ended our sons' lives. He left for a hotel, the door closing softly behind him, leaving me alone in the silence. A week after the funeral that never happened, Noah came back to talk. He sat across from me at our kitchen table, the same table where we'd shared so many meals as a family. Now, he looked like he'd aged a decade, deep lines etched around his eyes, his shoulders slumped under invisible weight. "I should have believed you," he said simply, his voice raw and cracked. "You tried to tell me something was wrong, and I dismissed you every time. I chose my mother over my wife and children, and now my sons are dead because of it." I had imagined this conversation 100 times in my mind, rehearsing angry accusations, bitter words that would cut him as deeply as I'd been cut. But seeing him there, broken and genuine in his regret, I couldn't summon the rage I'd expected. It had burned out, leaving only ashes. "We both failed them," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. I knew something was wrong deep down. I should have done more, fought harder, taken them to the doctor no matter what she said or did. Noah shook his head slowly, tears welling in his eyes. "No. This is on me and on her. You tried to protect them from the start. I was blind, willfully blind. I've been blind my whole life to what she really is, to the monster behind the mother I thought I knew." As the criminal case against Evelyn progressed through the courts, more disturbing information came to light, piece by piece, like a puzzle assembling itself into a horrifying picture. The prosecutor dug into her past and discovered records of mental health treatments spanning decades. She'd been diagnosed with delusional disorder and narcissistic personality disorder, conditions that explained her obsessive control but didn't excuse it. In her 20s, she'd been hospitalized twice after becoming dangerously fixated on men who had rejected her, stalking them, harassing them until authorities stepped in. But the revelation that hit Noah hardest was about his father. All his life, he'd believed his dad died in a tragic accident when he was 5. That was the story Evelyn had told him, the one he'd carried like a sad but noble legacy. But it was a lie. His father had left them, fleeing Evelyn's increasingly controlling and unstable behavior. She'd fabricated the death story to erase him completely, ensuring Noah would never search for him, never question her version of events. "My entire life has been built on her lies," Noah told me one evening, his voice hollow and distant. "Everything I thought I knew about my childhood, about my father, all of it was fabricated just to keep me dependent on her, to make sure I never left her side." Noah and I began seeing a grief counselor together, sitting in a quiet office week after week, trying to find a way through the shared trauma that had shattered our world. We talked about the twins, about the guilt that gnawed at us both, about the what-ifs that haunted our nights. The counselor was kind but firm, recommending we also see a marriage therapist to rebuild what was left of us. But I was hesitant, the idea feeling like too much too soon. The betrayal ran too deep, a wound that throbbed with every memory. Noah had chosen his mother over me at every turn, dismissing my concerns as paranoia, leaving me to fight her psychological warfare alone. And our sons had paid the ultimate price for his loyalty. How could I trust him again? How could we move forward when the foundation was cracked beyond repair? Noah's family fractured over the case, lines drawn in the sand that split relatives into camps. Some refused to believe Evelyn was guilty, clinging to denial like a lifeline. They claimed she was being framed, or that her mental capacity was diminished, making her incapable of such evil. She's not well, they'd say, as if that erased the lives lost. Others were horrified by the evidence, reaching out to Noah and me with offers of support, apologies for not seeing the signs sooner. His Aunt Margaret, Evelyn's own sister, was one of them. She met me for coffee one afternoon, her face lined with regret. She revealed that she had always worried about Evelyn's relationship with Noah, calling it unhealthily close from the start. She couldn't stand when Noah found you, Margaret told me, stirring her coffee slowly. She smiled at the wedding, but inside, she was seething with jealousy. I heard her say once that no woman would ever be good enough for her son, and she would make sure any who tried would regret it deeply. As the court date approached, the tension built like a storm on the horizon. Evelyn's lawyer attempted to negotiate a plea deal, arguing that her mental illness meant she hadn't intended to kill the twins, that it was a tragic mistake born of delusion. But the prosecutor refused, confident in the strength of the evidence stacked against her. The videos, the toxicology, Lily's testimony, it was airtight. Meanwhile, Lily continued to see Dr. Reynolds weekly, sitting in that child-friendly room working through her trauma and confusion. She had nightmares about her grandmother, often waking up screaming that Evelyn was putting medicine in her juice, trying to make her sleep forever too. I would hold her tight in the dark, rocking her back to sleep, promising over and over that Grandma could never hurt her again, that she was safe with me. One night, after putting Lily to bed with extra hugs and stories, I found Noah sitting in the darkened nursery. We had left it untouched since that terrible morning, the crib still standing empty, the mobile hanging motionless above them. It was a room frozen in time, a place we couldn't bear to dismantle because it would mean accepting they were truly gone. Noah sat in the rocking chair, staring at the wall. "I can't stay in this marriage," he said without turning around, his voice flat but heavy with sorrow. "Not because I don't love you, but because every time I look at you, I'm reminded of how I failed you and our sons. You deserve better than that. Better than me, better than this constant reminder of what I let happen." Part of me wanted to fight for our marriage, to grab his hand and insist we could heal together, that love could overcome even this. We'd built a life once, maybe we could rebuild. But a larger part of me knew he was right. Our relationship had been fatally wounded long before the twins died, undermined by his mother's manipulation and his own inability to prioritize his wife and children over her. We might have overcome that with time and therapy, patching the cracks slowly. But the weight of our sons' deaths was too heavy a burden for our already fragile bond to bear. It would crush us both if we tried to force it. 2 weeks before Evelyn's trial was set to begin, Noah filed for divorce. The papers arrived in the mail, citing irreconcilable differences, a bland, official term that couldn't begin to capture the devastation that had torn our family apart, the betrayal, the loss, the endless nights of tears. Evelyn's trial began on a crisp autumn day, 18 months after the twins died. I sat in the courtroom, Lily safely at school with friends, watching as the woman who had killed my sons entered in handcuffs. Her once immaculate appearance was now diminished by prison attire and the absence of her carefully applied makeup. She looked smaller, older, but no less dangerous. The evidence against her was overwhelming, the security footage playing on loop for the jury, the toxicology reports laid out in stark detail, Lily's testimony recorded on video to spare her the trauma of facing her grandmother in court, and even Evelyn's own partial confession during interrogation. It all left little room for doubt. Her defense team attempted to portray her as a loving grandmother whose mental illness had clouded her judgment, turning her actions into misguided help rather than malice. They presented expert witnesses who testified about her history of delusional thinking and narcissistic tendencies. They argued that she truly believed she was helping the twins by medicating them, that in her disturbed mind, she was solving a problem rather than creating one, easing what she saw as suffering. The prosecution countered with evidence of premeditation and escalation, the increasing dosages shown in the video footage, her efforts to hide her actions from me, and her attempts to blame me for everything all pointed to awareness of wrongdoing. She knew what she was doing was wrong, they argued, and did it anyway. When it was my turn to take the stand, I faced Evelyn directly for the first time since the funeral. She stared back, her expression unreadable, a mask of indifference. As I testified about the months leading up to the twins' deaths, the warning signs I had noticed in their lethargy, the concerns I had raised to Noah and dismissed, and the gaslighting I had endured from her, I saw no remorse in her eyes, only calculation, as if she was still plotting her next move. On the trial's 5th day, I was permitted to read a victim impact statement. I stood before the court, my hands trembling as I unfolded the paper containing words that could never adequately express my loss, the hole in my heart. Ethan and Elijah were only 3 months old, I began, my voice stronger than I expected, fueled by the need to honor them. They never had the chance to crawl, to walk, to say their first words. They will never go to school, never fall in love, never know the joy of raising children of their own. Their lives were stolen, not by a stranger, but by someone who should have loved and protected them, their own grandmother. I spoke about who the twins had been in their brief lives, their distinct personalities already emerging even in those short months. Ethan, slightly larger, more vocal, with a gaze that seemed to take in everything around him, curious and alert. Elijah, quieter, more contemplative, with a smile that would light up at the sound of his sister's voice, a gentle soul. The loss of a child is a pain no parent should ever have to endure, I continued, my voice steady but my heart aching. The loss of 2 children at the hands of someone you trusted creates a wound that can never fully heal. Every milestone they should have reached, every birthday they should have celebrated, every achievement they should have accomplished is now a moment of grief instead of joy. I looked directly at Evelyn, meeting her eyes without flinching. I want to hate you for what you did. Part of me does. But mostly, I pity you. Your obsession with controlling your son's life cost you everything and cost my babies their lives. No punishment the court can impose will ever equal the punishment of knowing what you've done, living with that every day. The jury deliberated for just 6 hours before returning with a verdict, guilty on 2 counts of second-degree murder. The judge sentenced Evelyn to 20 years to life, noting the particular heinousness of killing infants who depended on her for care, who trusted her completely. As Evelyn was led from the courtroom in chains, she looked back once, not at me, but at Noah, who sat in the row behind me, his face pale. I did it for you, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, her voice breaking the silence. Everything I've ever done was for you. Noah's face crumpled, the last thread of his illusion shattering, and he walked out without responding, shoulders shaking. It was the last time I would see him for many years, the final chapter of our shared life closing. Our divorce was finalized 3 months after the trial, the paperwork a cold end to what had once been love. Noah moved across the country, starting over in a new city, sending generous child support but maintaining only minimal contact with Lily through occasional phone calls and birthday cards, small gestures that couldn't bridge the gap. I understood his absence as an act of penance, his way of acknowledging that he had failed us all, that his presence would only remind us of the pain. Lily and I moved to a smaller city, several hours away, a place without memories on every corner, where the streets didn't echo with loss. She started kindergarten, made new friends who didn't know our story, and gradually, the nightmares became less frequent, fading like shadows in the light. We saw a family therapist who specialized in childhood trauma, working through Lily's confusion and grief in age-appropriate ways, using drawings and stories to help her make sense of the senseless. I couldn't return to my marketing career. The corporate environment, with its meetings and campaigns, suddenly seemed meaningless after what we had endured, trivial in the face of real loss. Instead, I enrolled in law school, determined to use my experience to help other women navigating family trauma, custody battles, and domestic psychological abuse. Law school with a young child wasn't easy, late nights studying while Lily slept, juggling classes and playdates, but it gave me purpose, a path forward through my grief. Each class, each exam, each internship was a step away from being merely a victim and toward becoming an advocate, someone who could fight for others as I wished someone had fought for me. In my second year, I joined a support group for parents who had lost children, meeting in a quiet community center once a week. Sitting in a circle with others who understood the particular anguish of outliving your child brought a measure of comfort I hadn't found elsewhere. These people didn't need explanations or background, they simply knew the contours of this specific pain, the way it reshaped your world. One woman there, Sophia, had lost her teenager to suicide after years of bullying at school. She had channeled her grief into founding a non-profit organization focused on preventing bullying and supporting families affected by it, turning her loss into action. Inspired by her example, I began to consider how I might use my developing legal skills to effect broader change, to create something positive from the ashes. After graduation and passing the bar exam, a grueling test that felt like a milestone in my healing, I worked for a family law practice, building experience while developing a specialty in cases involving parental alienation and psychological abuse within families. I saw too many women whose concerns about their children's safety were dismissed as paranoia or hysteria, their voices silenced by courts or partners. Too many partners gaslit by manipulative in-laws, convinced they were the problem. Too many children caught in the crossfire of toxic family dynamics, suffering in silence. Each case reminded me of my own struggle, fueling my determination to make a difference. 3 years after moving, I established a nonprofit organization called Voices Heard, dedicated to providing legal support and advocacy for parents facing situations similar to what I had experienced. We offered resources like workshops and hotlines, referrals to trusted lawyers, and, in some cases, direct representation for those who couldn't afford private attorneys. It started small, in a rented office with a handful of volunteers, but grew as word spread. Lily grew into a perceptive, compassionate child with an old soul, wise beyond her years. At 9, she asked if she could volunteer at Voices Heard, stuffing envelopes and helping with simple office tasks during weekends. "I want to help other kids whose grandmas are mean," she explained, her directness untainted by adult euphemisms, often cutting straight to the heart of matters with a clarity I envied. Noah reached out on what would have been the twins' 5th birthday, an email popping up in my inbox unexpectedly. It was brief but heartfelt, asking how Lily was doing, her school, her friends, and sharing that he had finally started therapy to process his role in our family's tragedy, confronting the guilt that had haunted him. He had remarried, he said, to a widow with a son of her own, and was trying to be the father and husband he had failed to be with us, building a new life from the ruins. I found, to my surprise, that I could wish him well without bitterness, the anger having softened over time into something like understanding. 7 years to the day after finding my sons lifeless in their cribs, a date etched into my soul, I stood before a state legislative committee, testifying in support of a bill that would require courts to take children's disclosures of abuse seriously, even when they implicated family members. The room was filled with lawmakers, their faces attentive as I spoke. The law, if passed, would be called Ethan and Elijah's Law, a tribute to my boys. My 4-year-old daughter tried to tell us what was happening, I explained to the committee, my voice steady despite the emotion rising. But, like so many children, her warnings were dismissed as imagination or confusion. Had we listened, had the adults in her life believed her without question, my sons might be alive today. The bill passed after heated debates and amendments, one small victory in the ongoing battle to protect children from those who should be their fiercest offenders but sometimes become their greatest threats. It wasn't a cure-all, but it was a start, a change that could save lives. Life continued, as it somehow does, even after unimaginable loss, flowing forward like a river around rocks. Lily entered middle school, then high school, growing into a young woman with a fierce sense of justice and uncommon empathy, shaped by her early experiences but not defined by them. I found purpose in my work, meaning in helping others navigate the treacherous waters of family trauma, turning my pain into power. And while the ache of losing Ethan and Elijah never disappeared entirely, it changed over time, becoming a familiar companion rather than a debilitating force, a quiet reminder of love lost but not forgotten. The most profound lesson I learned through all of this was to trust my own instincts, especially as a mother. Society too often dismisses women's concerns as overreactions or hysteria, particularly when they conflict with established family hierarchies or challenge the authority of older generations. This dismissal can have deadly consequences, silencing voices that could prevent tragedy. I also learned the importance of listening to children, really listening without judgment. Lily saw what the adults around her were unwilling to see, her innocent perspective cutting through the fog. Her simple, unfiltered observations contained truths we were too blinded by social niceties and family loyalty to acknowledge. Children often perceive dynamics and dangers that adults miss, their warnings pure and urgent, and they should never be ignored or brushed aside. Finally, I learned that healing doesn't mean forgetting or moving on as if nothing happened. It means incorporating loss into your life in a way that honors what was lost while still allowing for forward movement, growth amid the grief. My twins will always be part of me, their brief lives a sacred thread in the fabric of my existence, woven into who I am. The best tribute I can offer them is to use their story to protect other children, to ensure their short lives have lasting meaning, rippling out to help families I'll never meet. Lily's small voice did what all my desperate pleas could not, exposing the truth that set us free from the lies and manipulation. Sometimes, justice comes from the most unexpected sources, a child's honesty breaking through where adults falter. And the journey to healing begins when we dare to face the truth, no matter how painful it may be, stepping into the light. Have you ever had to stand up for the truth when everyone around you refused to see it? How did you find the courage to speak out, even when it felt like no one would believe you? Share your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that their voice matters. Thank you for listening, and remember, trust your instincts and never underestimate the power of speaking your truth, no matter how small your voice may seem.